Marsh Pod. We are recording this on Sunday. We are not talking Sunday football today. SWFL is not the topic of our conversation. Two other things that I want to get to. One of them, SWBA, we had breaking news over the weekend that Karl Anthony Towns is getting dealt from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the New York Knicks. We're going to get to that. We've also got an EM giveaway. Rules of that are to follow in the middle of this podcast, but you'll have to be listening in for all of it to get to that point. But where we're going to start is SimWorld U. We are now, by the time this comes out on Monday, we will be 28 hours away, 27 hours away from tip-off of, I think it's LSU Duke at 7 o'clock. I'm excited to be on that call with B-Ron. That is the beginning of the SimWorld U season officially. And the big breaking news over the weekend was that DJ Childs had been cleared to play by Alabama. He had the sprained ankle that sidelined him for a couple weeks during preseason, but according to the report, he passed, quote-unquote, the latest test, and he's ready to go. There's a little bit of concern out there in the immediate aftermath. Are they rushing him back unnecessarily, and they're going to hamper him over the long run? Here's the thing. Call me naive, but I'm going to be trusting, okay? I'm going to be trusting that the Alabama Crimson Tide are doing the right thing for this team, and they're doing the right thing for their player. Yes, he's going to have 3 games in the first week of the season, first, 10 days I think it is, between the 1st of October and the 8th of October. They play Arizona, Stanford, and Iowa. Then they're going to play 2 games on October 14th and the 17th, Baylor and Memphis. And then they've got a pretty, honestly, jammed up October. They'll play 3 more times, 22nd, 24th, and 30th. I don't think that this is going to be a long-term injury that's going to impact DJ Childs. I can understand the concern. I can understand why you might not want to have him out there at this point in the season. You know, sprained ankles, you're looking at typically 4 to 6 weeks, and I think if memory serves, he suffered the latest setback about a month ago. So in theory, it wouldn't hurt to give him another 2 weeks, and you got the 6-week span coming back on October 14th. That being said, I think that for Alabama, I think that this is the right move. Okay. First off, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, right? We don't know if this latest test he passed, was it an easy one to pass? Was it a difficult one to pass? We don't know what his rehab has been like. It's been pretty quiet on that front, which makes me think that all things are good news, right? No news is good news in this case, and there wasn't any updates that would say this guy wasn't going to be ready for day one, and he is. Now, yes, you can make the case, and I understand the case to be made, that you don't need him against Stanford and Iowa. You probably need him against a pretty good Arizona team. But overall, I think that DJ Childs is a guy who's, 20 years old? He's got the best training staff, probably among the best, let's go with that somebody at 20 years old can have. And the fact that he's going to get that in Alabama, I think he's ready to go. And I don't think that they're going to be sacrificing, and I also don't think that it's worth sacrificing losses, because you need to pile up as many wins as you can get so that you can make a case for Hoopsteria, because the SEC is deep. Kentucky and Tennessee are are the favorites going into the season. Alabama, you're going to put probably number 3rd on that list. You need to stockpile wins against good basketball teams, and getting wins, especially against Arizona team that you met in the Sweet 16 last season and beat, and a team that I think DJ Childs and Alabama, and a team in Arizona who I think is going to be good in the Pac-12 again, you need to get this type of win right off the bat. You don't go chasing wins this early. I understand that. But I do believe that they need to make an aggressive approach. The season does kind of teeter out for this group. Between December 5th and January 22nd, they do not play a game. And so now that is a couple months away. That is the midway point of their season. But they have 2 games in the month of January and 3 games on their schedule in the month of February. If they have any concerns, they have a large time off that they can rest DJ Childs. That's 6 weeks right there between the beginning of December and the end of January. If there is any concern with his ability to be ready, they will have time during the season to find those moments. This also could use time between games, right? 3 days off, completely off. Don't allow that injury to potentially fester. The point is, I don't think they're rushing back because I don't think they do it. I think this is a basketball team and a program that has earned the respect of understanding what they're saying and putting the player's best interest in mind, and I think that's what's happening in Alabama. Before we get to Karl Anthony Towns becoming a New York Knick, we've got an EM giveaway. We've been doing this on SimWorld today. So you're going to pump in here. You're going to put in the number 32. That I think was Karl Anthony Towns' number. And then you're going to put your personal trade location if you were going to move Cat. Okay? The trade's been done. This isn't should I move him, should I not. But if you were the Minnesota Timberwolves, just put in the number 32, and you're going to say where you would have traded him. If you want to put your trade package together, fine by me. Go for it. But you're going to put the destination. If you think the Knicks was the right call, put the New York Knicks in. If you think he should have gone to the Dallas Mavericks, put the Dallas Mavericks in. Miami Heat. Or if you don't think he should have been traded at all, just put in Minnesota Timberwolves. And that means he's staying put. So 32 and the place that you think that he should have been traded to, we will do an EM giveaway. 1,000 EMs randomly selected to those who participate. So pump that into the chat. On to the trade itself. The deal is a first-round pick via Detroit that's protected, along with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. This trade was going to happen the moment they acquired Rudy Gobert. Because the Minnesota Timberwolves have a financial situation on their hands. They are overpaying guys, not overpaying, they are heavily paying guys with an ownership group, current, and if the deal ever goes through, future, that have proven or have made hints at not wanting to really go deep into the luxury tax. And that was always going to be the culprit, right? And if you look at how do you get out of that situation financially, it was either trading Karl Anthony Towns, which they did. It was going to be trading Rudy Gobert and trading Anthony Edwards. Let's go with the easy one. Anthony Edwards was never going to be traded. He's a top 5 player at his position group. He's a top 5 player in his age range. He might be top 3, if not higher. He just was the number 1 guy on a team that got to the Western Conference Finals. If the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to contend for an SWBA championship, it's going to be because of Anthony Edwards. Rudy Gobert, you're not going to get the commensurate value for what you dealt away to get Rudy Gobert. And frankly, I don't know if you would get any value. I don't know a team that would want to take on the contract for Rudy Gobert with what it's owed in the long term. He signed a 4-year, $102 million deal. That was a long time ago. This is what he's owed over the next 2 seasons when he's going to be 32 and 34. $43.8 million this coming season. And then he's got a player option, which he's going to pick up at $46.6 million. No one is going to have the financial capabilities to acquire that player because the new restrictions that exist, and the Timberwolves are not into the luxury tax line, but no team is going to have the type of pieces required to package together a deal to get Rudy Gobert. And 2, anyone that, let's say you put together 2 $20 million deals, nobody wants to give up a $20 million player to get Rudy Gobert back, and or the guy that you'd be willing to, let's say, offload salary for to get Rudy Gobert is probably not worth $20 million for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So for that reason alone, the financial mechanisms and the fact that you need to find a or multiple players that are owed $40 million individually or collectively, and if another team is willing to give those up, it probably means it's a diminished value. That's not going to happen. And then on top of that, you gave up 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert. That means that you need to try to find a way to get some of those assets back, and the Timberwolves were never going to do that. So that's why Rudy Gobert was never going to be traded. And that's why we look at this team, and ever since Rudy Gobert was acquired, the most obvious and all roads end to line was Karl Anthony Towns being dealt. Yes, the 2 big lineup worked. It got them to the Western Conference Finals. I will tell you right now, I am not a believer in Rudy Gobert. I am not a believer in him on a championship team. And frankly, I'm not a believer in Karl Anthony Towns on a championship team either. But that's the situation that the Timberwolves, for whatever reason, decided to put themselves into ahead of this 2024-2025 season. They're 10 days away from training camp. There is no other way for them to get the pieces that would make this thing work. But I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, if we can speak. And here's why. Karl Anthony Towns' deal is now off the books. Rudy Gobert's deal is going to be off the books in 2 seasons. They did just acquire, of course, that we said, Julius Randle. and his deal is going to be walking into the Timberwolves books as well. But his current cap situation, $28.9 million this season, player option for $30.9 million next season. I would expect them to either try to get him to pick that up or sign maybe, let's say, a 3-year deal at 105, right? So where you might be hitting 30 and you're going to give him some raises after that. He'll be 31 years old next season. But this is why I think it's a good thing for Minnesota. They've set themselves up to actually be players financially over the next 2 seasons. Anthony Edwards is locked into a 5-year deal that starts this season and ends in 2028-2029. Jaden McDaniels last season signed a contract extension. That kicks in this season. He's owed $23 million, which is a bargain for him, and it's going up to $30 million in 2028-2029. Naz Reid, I think, can step in and be Karl Anthony Towns for less than half the price this season. He's owed $13, and then next season a player option at $15. Wouldn't be surprised if he declines that and they re-up him. But this gives the Minnesota Timberwolves an opportunity to be players in free agency. They are now, again, you're going to have to be comfortable getting aggressive and actually paying into the luxury tax, but I think this team is well positioned right now to actually be a player in free agency, and I really think when you have Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards as the centerpieces of this roster, that's actually a really enticing group to want to go to. As we sit currently, right now, heading into the 2026-2027 season, and this is not updated on Basketball Reference to minus the $57 million. So if we do math here on the fly, this is $87 million of allocated money from the Minnesota Timberwolves, $48 million from Anthony Edwards, $26 million from Jaden Daniels. That means they're going to have more than enough cap space to be legitimate players in free agency. We just saw Paul George go from the Clippers to the 76ers. We saw Klay Thompson go from the Warriors to the Mavericks. This was one of the more active, if you will, free agency periods, and the Minnesota Timberwolves put themselves in a position to be active and aggressive. They can relinquish their bird rights to Rudy Gobert. They can pay Naz Reid a deal that probably will start at around, let's say, $28 million. Even if you do that, you are still, with a growing cap space or growing cap line, plenty of space to go out and get a notable free agent in the 2026-2027 season. So, yes, this deal is shocking. Yes, Karl Anthony Towns spent the last 9 years, and just when this team gets good, he's out the door. This deal was always going to happen. And the Minnesota Timberwolves have now positioned themselves ahead of 2026, the summer of 2026, assuming they don't make any boneheaded extensions for somebody, which I don't think they should do, for Julius Randle, who, again, his deal has a player option for next season. Then it's done. They can be serious players for somebody notable. And Karl Anthony Towns, I don't think, was notable. He struggled from deep in those series against the Dallas Mavericks. He's a defensive liability. And you can get the production from Naz Reid that you can get from Karl Anthony Towns for less than half the cost. That's the good business decision move. And this team is now positioned with a young superstar to be aggressive. They've got a dynamic wing combination. If Rob Dillingham, who I loved their decision to trade up and get him, it was their last chance to be picking that high in the draft, and they trade up and get him at number 8, I think that's a good move. They are now positioned with young pieces and cap space to be aggressive with one of the best young players in the SWBA. We are back on the broadcast on Tuesday. Don't forget, put in the number 32 where you think Karl Anthony Towns should have been dealt to, or if nowhere, just throw in the Minnesota Timberwolves. One lucky giveaway for 1,000 EMs. We will announce that 24 hours from this releasing. So Tuesday at 4 p.m., we will release who gets the EMs there. So put in your answer over the next 24 hours, and we will get rolling. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on SimWorld today.